Hello and welcome back. So today I'm going over the ISTJ compatibility with all 16 types. On the left-hand side, I have 5 different tiers. The first one is you're in my life forever. These are going to be like soulmate type connections. There's going to be clear chemistry. You guys are not going to be getting rid of each other anytime soon. And then I have I love you, let's live. There's going to be really good communication. There's going to be a lot of love and respect between these two types. You guys can be best friends, ride or dies. You guys will still be in each other's lives for a lifetime, but there might not always be a romantic spark. Then I have let's be friends. Let's not overcomplicate this. These are your friends. And then I have hello human. These people you're not necessarily clashing with, but you're not really trying to connect with either. You're kind of just respecting each other's differences and just going your own ways in this world. And then we have we might clash or ... Yes, there's always a possibility that the people you don't get along with intrigue you the most, and while you're studying this individual, you might fall for that individual. Though it might be rare, more often than not, you're not necessarily going to see eye to eye with these people. I'm going to be going from left to right, and the timestamps will be below, so you can definitely skip to whatever type you're interested in, but I will be giving little tips and tricks for each one. This is the ISTJ function stack, and they're about 10% of the population. The first type I will be covering is the ENTP, so I already have their function stack ready to go, and they're about 5% of the population. Before I begin the compatibility, I want to provide a quick little disclaimer. As an ISTJ, SI is your DOM function, and SI is your past. It's your past experiences, it's what you were exposed to, it's how you were raised, and basically it's your understanding on how you're supposed to be in this world. Well, everyone has a different past, everyone has a different upbringing, everyone has a different culture background, and therefore everyone will be different. You're 10% of the population. There's a lot of variety within your type. So I'm going to be doing this tier by comparing the functions within your function stacks. However, I don't know what you were exposed to in your past, so I'm doing this off of your function stack, so you might not always resonate with where I'm putting these types. So just remember, this is only my perspective. If you like a type that's further down, if you don't like a type that I put further up, make your own choices in this world. This is not a rule book for you to find your potential partner. This is just my take based off of how your functions line up with another stack within this world. So everyone keep in mind that SI DOMs, there's a lot of variety between this 10%. So always keep your options open with an SI DOM. So without further ado, let's begin. Alright, ENTPs are going in hello human. So ISTJ, you like what you like. You like what you were exposed to. You kind of have a routine for your life and you kind of want to do this on repeat. Well, as an ENTP, they're NE DOMs. They're open to the newness of life. They want to be talking about all of these new ideas, all of these new possibilities, and actually taking action on them and kind of testing out in reality, does this work? Does this not work? How is my community reacting? I'm going to share what I think about a new situation, a new theory, and they're going to just kind of play off the people around them. Well, from an ISTJ perspective, you're going to be you're definitely not doing what you're supposed to be doing right now. You're coming up with all of these new ideas and just testing them out because you might think they're funny or they're workable, and simply put, you just want the reactions. Well, I have a lot of work I need to get done. I have an order and structure to my life, and you're kind of creating a lot of chaos every step of the way. I don't really feel like you're a good influence on me. I don't really feel like, people around me are thinking good things by me keeping you within my close circle. You're definitely not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You might be getting into trouble. You're definitely going to share your hot takes and offend people more often than not within this reality. Even though ISTJs are not really sharing how they feel about anything, they're keeping their FI close to their chest, they do have big feelings within this world. And when an ENTP is just kind of rambling and ranting and kind of sharing all of their ideas, a lot of them could come off as offensive from time to time. They're not really considering okay, how will this person feel if I say it this way? They just kind of want to see how they react. And if they do react badly, they will apologize more often than not. But the damage might have already been done, and to an ISTJ, they're kind of ruling you out on keeping you close within this world. An ENTP might be giving them a huge headache because they can't really get a read on you. They don't necessarily know what schedule are you sticking to, what are you actually supposed to be doing in this world. They can't plan around an ENTP's life. They have no idea how to do that. What is even step one within that situation? So they're kind of at a loss on really trying to understand and feel comfortable around an ENTP. So more often than not, they're just going to respect each other's differences and be all right, you stay over there with your friend group. I'm going to stay over here with my friend group. Let's not really communicate. You're not the most grounded individual. I don't even know half of the things you're saying within conversations. It's so hard to connect with you. I can't keep up with all of your ideas. So simply put, they're just going to stay out of each other's way, give each other a lot of space within this world. They might acknowledge each other hello human from time to time, but more often than not, yeah, they're not connecting within reality. INTPs are going in hello human. These individuals are students for a lifetime. They're always coming up with new ideas and kind of deep diving within that subject. They're getting the full framework on that topic, and then they want to share those ideas with their family, with their friends, with their colleagues, whoever really wants to listen to them talk. They have no issue providing a lecture on a topic anytime you request them to. However, most of the ideas that they're curious about are not the most grounded ideas within reality. They're not very realistic. They're all about the possibilities in this world. INTPs are SE blind. They don't necessarily want to get out and about in reality. They don't necessarily want to be super social. They don't always want to be seen. They would kind of rather hold themselves away within their office or their cave. They just want to gather all of the information, connect this working theory with everything else that's going on in this world, come up with a hypothesis, do their experiments step by step, and kind of analyze the results and really come to a conclusion of okay, is this plausible? Is this not plausible? Should I write a book on this subject? Should I write an article? Should I share it with my community? So there's a lot of possibilities with an INTP, and from an ISTJ perspective, you're going to be you're spending so much time studying all of these topics that there's nothing we can do with them right now. It's not realistic. No one in reality has actually taken action on this thing. You're just thinking up all of these new ideas just because you have the time to do so, and you think it's a really cool possibility. Well, ISTJs want to be structured. They want to be productive. They want to be efficient with their time. And they might feel okay, an INTP is just coming up with all of these crazy ideas, and they can't do anything with it. So they might be a little bit frustrated, and they might not necessarily feel it's a good use of their time to spend a lot of time with an INTP, because if they ever ask them a question oh, what are you studying? What are you working on? An INTP is not going to be able to answer that question within 2 minutes, 5 minutes, even 10 minutes. It might be a 30-minute to a 2-hour lecture at any given time. And simply put, an ISTJ probably got lost within that conversation 5 minutes in, because an INTP was kind of going all around with their ideas, so not necessarily being congruent with how they're explaining it. Yes, they have the full framework, but they might be connecting it to a lot of things at once. And therefore, the ISTJ, simply put, might be overwhelmed. They probably respect the wealth of knowledge that the INTP has. So if you are colleagues or coworkers, yeah, you guys might get along from time to time, because whenever the ISTJ is doing their job step by step, if they come into an issue where they can't figure out, okay, what is this possible issue? I don't see how it connects to everything else. I was following the directions on how I was supposed to. They might actually lean on the INTP and ask them for advice, being hey, this is what I was doing on this work project. I was doing it step by step. I was only doing what was objectively asked from me within the directions. However, I feel I probably misstepped because it's not working. I'm coming, there's an error on my screen. Maybe they're in IT. I have no idea, but something is not working for them. And they probably know without a doubt an INTP really understands what the issue is. So they're definitely going to lean on each other for information, to share what they think about a situation. I mean, they are facts over feelings type of people. However, how they're perceiving this world is very, very different. Yes, INTPs have that SI child, but any overrides it. They're always going to be kind of scattered with their ideas. They're always going to be focusing on the fantasy, all of the things that are not realistic within reality. And simply put, the ISTJ just might not be interested in those things. So they're going to have a hard time kind of connecting with an INTP, but they don't necessarily clash with them all of the time. So they're going to respect each other's space. And, when they need to lean on them for their TI, they're definitely going to ask them the questions, because an INTP will help out their community. So they don't necessarily hate each other or really try to avoid each other, but they're also not really trying to spend a lot of time talking to each other. So they're going to give each other space. They're going to just respect each other's differences and just kind of acknowledge them from time to time, be hello, fellow human, and then just proceed with their life and just go along their own way. Now, an ENFP is going to be, let's be friends. There's definitely potential for more, but first things first, I think you have to have a foundation for your friendship. When an ENFP sees a new person in reality, they're going to want to talk to them. They're going to want to engage with them. They're going to try to figure out who is this person. And when they bounce up to an ISTJ and start kind of rambling and ranting, they might be a little bit overwhelming from an ISTJ's perspective. First things first, they might be whoa, that was a lot of information at once. I'm not really sure what they were trying to do within the conversation. They covered a lot of topics. They were kind of scattered with their ideas. They took many tangents, but they might feel okay, this was a nice person overall. Just because I was a little confused within the conversation, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were rude or offensive. So they're definitely going to give that ENFP a chance. They see that the ENFP is accomplishing a lot of things because, yeah, they're passionate about a lot of things in this world. They come up with all of these ideas and they take action on them sooner than later. So they're busy little bees within reality. And so when they bound up to an ISTJ and kind of like share like, oh, this is what I'm working on. This is all of my passion projects. These are all the foundations or nonprofits that I'm working with. An ISTJ might really respect that. Be like, wow, I feel like you're doing a lot of good. Like you have a full schedule. So like kudos to you for like doing everything you can do within those 24 hours every day. They might not necessarily think it's the most efficient use of their time because they're only really giving each project like 20% of their time. They're not necessarily doing any project step by step from start to finish, then starting a new project. ENFPs are kind of tackling a lot of things all at once. They can be a little scattered with all of the things where they're passionate about at this time. So even though they have a different method with how they kind of start and complete projects, they kind of respect each other's vibe. They respect each other's differences. They respect each other's passion projects. And they're like, all right, you're a bit much, ENFP. However, I think you're pretty cool. You have a lot of good ideas. No, they're not the most grounded ideas in reality. However, they might actually feel like, okay, it's a possible working theory. Maybe they can do something with it. Maybe they can figure out on how they can actually incorporate it within their reality, little by little, not to overwhelm their, routine by any means. And I definitely think the ISTJ, if they actually care for that ENFP and they become good friends, they might be able to help them being like, look, I love the fact that you have all of these passion projects, but you really do need to incorporate some structure within your life. You need a little bit more stability. Like, I have no problem being your friend. You can vent to me. We can hang out. But every single time I ask you a question, you're way too scattered for my liking. So let me help you, like, create a schedule, create a routine, create something in order to give them a little bit more stability in this world. And I think the ENFP is really going to appreciate that. And, throughout their friendship, they definitely can, like, move up the tier and kind of, end up as a relationship, end up as best friends for a lifetime. There's a lot of potential with this type. But first things first, your NE as an ENFP is going to overwhelm an ISTJ. So they need to take their time and really kind of feel you out, figure out your vibe. And once they assess the situation and actually realize you're a really cool person in this world, you're just a bit much, all at once. The first time you're engaging and communicating with an ENFP. But with time and every social function that you guys show up to together or you connect with at the social function, you see each other from across the room. And of course, the ENFP is going to want to talk to anyone and everyone. And they're going to engage the ISTJ. And even though the ISTJ is blind to FE, they're not normally really motivated to ask other people all of the small talk questions. They are going to be curious with this ENFP because simply put, they're going to respect their vibe. And they're going to be like, okay, what new passion project are you working on today? I haven't seen you, for 2 weeks. What's new? Have you completed any of your current projects, or are they all kind of idling at like 50 to 60 to maybe 70% completion? Give me the rundown, ENFP. And therefore, within time, yeah, you can go from just, being friends to something more. So there's always that potential. But I do think your all's dynamic will always start as just friends. I don't think there's going to be a romantic spark right away, but there's always that possibility. So, keep your options open. INFPs are going in hello human. Okay, INFPs are just vibing out in reality. They get overwhelmed by literally anything and everything. They don't want to really go out into reality. And when they do, yeah, that's when they're getting overwhelmed and they're just like, look, okay, I have a schedule. I'm going to stick to it. It brings me comfort. It brings me joy. It makes me feel good in this world. Showing up to all of the community events, showing up to the fundraisers, showing up to all of these social functions. No, that is not going to make me feel good. I'm going to be overwhelmed. I don't necessarily want to be super social. I'm just going to kind of recluse away to my like fantasy world, read all of my fantasy books and kind of just keep to myself. And so let's say they engage with an ISTJ within conversation and an ISTJ simply asks, what are you interested in? What are you working on? Like, what are you TE accomplishing in this world? Well, an INFP, not saying you're not accomplishing much, but you're not the most proactive individual in this world. You kind of would rather vibe out, listen to an album on repeat, rewatch one of your favorite animes. You just kind of want to chill. You just want to kind of recluse away to your fantasy world and not just really focus on what's realistic in reality. Therefore, you got to have a schedule, you got to have a routine, and you're just simply put doing it over and over and over again. And when you explain that to an ISTJ or they simply figure that out on their own, they're going to be like, okay, INFPs are kind, right? They're always been very nice within communication. They're always very nice and respectful within discussion. discussions. If they're working together or they're classmates and they're tackling a project, they're very respectful individuals. They might think they're very nice. The ISTJ might respect your vibe, INFP, but they do not respect the fact that you're not proactive in this world. ISTJs are trying to gain status. They're trying to move up within the social ladder. They're trying to work their way up the corporate ladder. Whatever thing in reality that they think they're supposed to be accomplishing, they're working towards it every single day. They're being very productive with their time. They're creating schedules for themselves, and they're working towards their goals every single day because that's what makes them feel good in reality. And when they find out the INFP is just doing the same thing every day, and none of those things that they're doing every single day on repeat is actually accomplishing their goals, they're just kind of vibing out and chilling out in reality. I'm not saying the ISTJ might perceive you as a bum, but they're going to be like, okay, this person isn't going to motivate me if I'm struggling at any part in my life. They're not going to be the ones to be like, yeah, you can do this. Let me help you accomplish this thing. Let me help you tackle your goal. No, they're going to be like, okay, you need to just take a chill day, vibe out with me, rest with me. Let's just listen to music. Let's make some really comforting food and just kind of chill out. And ISTJ is like, no, I prefer to be a busybody. I want to accomplish all of my goals within reality. I don't think I should just waste my days just because you simply feel like it. So from an ISTJ's perspective, they might not necessarily feel like an INFP is a person they want to keep close to them. They're not really going to motivate them. They're not necessarily going to respect their lack of, what they're accomplishing in this world. They barely even show up to social functions. So they might even be confused being like, look, from my perspective as an ISTJ, I'm effing blind. I don't want to engage in small talk. I don't necessarily want to keep up with the gossip, but I still show up because that's what you're supposed to do in society. You're supposed to support your communities and their functions, their fundraisers, the events. You're supposed to be seen, show your face in reality, do the small talk from time to time, because simply put, from their perspective, that's how they were raised. That's how they were instructed on how you're supposed to be. And they're going to keep doing that every single day within reality. So they're not going to necessarily see eye to eye with the INFP. They're going to think they're very kind and considerate people within reality. They're not necessarily trying to be mean to them. They're not necessarily clashing with them. But I don't think they're necessarily respecting the INFP. Yes, they might respect whatever they're passionate about, but their lack of action within this world, I definitely think is going to rub the ISTJ the wrong way. And they're just going to give them space and just let them be within reality. Let them be in their fantasy world and just let them go their separate ways. ESTPs are going in, I love you, let's live. You guys are shadow functions of each other, so you guys actually will have a very positive impact on your life. Before you guys are actually struggling and really shift into your shadow state, anytime you're super stressed, you're going to reach out to each other, you're going to connect within conversation, and while you're communicating, you're going to realize each other can actually give perspective, give motivation, and kind of provide insights on how to solve that issue before you actually have to shift into your shadow state. Both of you guys are very grounded individuals. You're both being very realistic with your ideas, with how you're perceiving this world. Both of you guys are facts over feelings type of people, so you're getting right to the point. You're providing your framework of information. You're providing the objective data and facts that relate to whatever topic you're talking about. You guys are being very focused. You guys are being very grounded, and you're only really communicating on what is realistic right now. ESTPs are opportunists, so they might see a new opportunity, a new way to solve a problem, a new direction to take this business idea. Whatever it is, they have their eyes and ears open. They're always listening to their community. They're always sharing what they think and kind of gauging the reaction based off of the people around them. So they're very perceptive people, and ISTJs are simply staying very focused towards their goals. They understand the rule book of reality. They're taking their life step by step. They're staying within their lane. They're not causing problems within this world. Okay, yeah, the ESTP is definitely could be problematic from time to time, but I think the ISTJ might find them really funny, definitely might get into some trouble with them, even though they definitely don't want to get in trouble. I think the ESTP will simply rally their community, including the ISTJ, and they're going to get into some chaos, but an ISTJ might kind of tap out of the situation before it gets too crazy, because they just might feel like, okay, I don't want this bad reputation. If this function gets busted, I definitely don't want this on my record. I'm not supposed to be doing anything bad that can hinder my goals for the long haul. So even though they're definitely going to get along, they're definitely going to be best friends, they're definitely going to be good colleagues, they're going to have really good communication, they are taking life at a different pace. ISTJs are way more structured. ESTPs are just way more open to all of the opportunities in this world. They're getting into a lot of chaos. They're probably offending some people from time to time with their hot takes, with their jokes. Simply put, they just saw something funny and said it really quick because they thought it was funny. And when 50% of their community laughed and the other 50% was offended, they will apologize, or they're just gonna be like, sorry, not sorry, sorry you got offended, but like, let's just move on. Whatever it is, they're gonna be very honest with their thoughts. And even though the ISTJ might get offended a little bit from time to time, they're not necessarily going to explain how they feel because they do keep their feelings close to their chest. But they might understand, okay, this is just how the ESTP is. They've always been that way. If an ISTJ has been around that ESTP for a long time, they understand, okay, that is just the normal routine for an ESTP. They see something funny, they say something funny, the community reacts, 50-50, 70-30, whatever it is. They will apologize if they do think that, okay, maybe I did take this joke a little far, maybe I wasn't supposed to say that. And the ISTJ is going to realize it's the same thing over and over and over with this ESTP. So they're not necessarily going to take offense because they just know that's just who the ESTP is. They've been around them enough to really understand, okay, that is just the normal MO. And because of that, they might not necessarily want you as a lifetime partner because the ISTJ understands what they're supposed to be doing, and getting in trouble, offending people is nowhere within their to-do list, on what they're supposed to be accomplishing with this world. So they might be best friends with an ESTP. When you guys are struggling, you guys will go to each other with whatever idea you can't really figure out how to tackle. You definitely will be able to give structure and, new ideas, new opportunities to each other. You're going to be able to get right to the point within the conversation and just share what you think and just share the information on this talking point. So you guys will definitely have a positive impact when you're like super stressed and struggling. But overall, I don't think the ISTJ wants you as a lifetime partner. They might feel like the ESTP might hurt their reputation. They definitely want to stay in their lane. So they don't have any issue, showing up to social functions together, partying together, hanging out together, but they probably don't want to live their whole life together, which I think is fine. So you're just going to be besties, ride or dies for a lifetime. You're going to love and respect each other, but you're not necessarily going to be in love with each other, which I think is fine. ISTPs are going in, I love you, let's live. These people are facts over feelings type of people. These are realistic people. They are grounded individuals within reality. They each have their own thing on what they're supposed to be doing right now. An ISTP is just gathering information on skill sets relevant to reality right now and turning it into a business that's going to support them for a lifetime. These individuals are staying within their lane on whatever they're thinking about. Yeah, they're open to the opportunities. They want to get their adrenaline going from time to time, but they're thinking about the long game. They're not necessarily going to get in too much trouble within reality. They understand within their community they need to keep up this good reputation, this respectful reputation, a reputation that people can trust, and therefore they're going to overall stay within their lane. In every decision that they make, they're going to focus on their future. And I think the ISTJ is going to really respect that, being like, wow, okay, you're very future focused, you're very grounded with your ideas, you gather all of this information, take time to process it, really kind of tinker with all of these ideas, and then you turn it into a business. You turn it into an amazing financial opportunity for you. And you understand every decision you make will affect your reputation for a lifetime. So an ISTJ is going to have a lot of love and respect for these types. They're going to be like, you're really cool. I really like the fact that you get right to the point when I ask you a question. If I'm struggling on something and I don't understand what to do next within this situation, I can always lean on you, ISTP. You can really explain it in detail. I walk away from that conversation 10 times more knowledgeable than when I originally just asked that question. So there's going to be a lot of love and respect between these two types, but there might not always be a romantic spark. You guys are both very grounded individuals with your thoughts, and both of you guys are kind of keeping your feelings really close to your chest. So there's a potential, chance y'all could actually like each other, but I don't think either of you guys might actually be expressing your feelings, and therefore you guys just might lose the opportunity to be together from time to time. Y'all just might end up kind of best friend zoning each other for a whole lifetime, not realizing you guys actually might be feeling the same way about each other. So there's a lot of opportunities for this type, but I think more often than not, you're just going to be best friends. If you're colleagues, if you're classmates, if you're just fellow community members, I think you're definitely going to lean on each other when you're struggling in reality. You're going to be able to share what issues you're dealing with, on how you were tackling them step by step, but you're still coming into this issue. You're not being able to cross this task off your to-do list, and you might feel a little bit lost and overwhelmed with like, what am I supposed to do now? That's when you're going to reach out to an ISTP, and they're going to respond immediately, be like, oh, I totally understand this issue. I've definitely experienced it within my life from time to time. Let me come come over, let me help you solve this problem, because they always show up for their community members. You simply just have to reach out and ask them a question, and they will always share their wealth of information with you. So these are a great dynamic duo. They're just not always going to lead to a romantic spark, which I think is fine. I think you guys are going to be great friends for a lifetime, amazing colleagues, amazing trustworthy individuals within the community. So yeah, you're going to just love each other, respect each other, and just like spend your lives around each other, but not necessarily with each other. But there's always that possibility. ESFPs are going in, I love you, let's live. ESFPs are showing up to the social function and they want to be seen, they want to be complimented, they want to be noticed, and they want to feel special within reality. And I think when they cross an ISTJ's path, and I think when they cross paths with an ISTJ is going to notice those things. They're going to notice all of the things that the ESFP is accomplishing. They have big feelings. They feel like they want to be a star within reality. So they're going to tackle every project that they can. They're going to move up the corporate ladder, and they're going to gain all of the status on social media, and they're going to gain as much attention as they can within reality. Well, an ISTJ is going to be like, wow. An ESFP is not afraid to start new things, is not afraid to follow their dreams, to tackle all of these passion projects. They're showing up in reality. They're vibing out every situation and every environment that they walk into, and they're taking action on all of the opportunities around them. They're not leaving anything on the table within every conversation. They're gaining status. They're gaining a reputation within reality that is essentially a star, and I think they're going to shine bright within the ISTJ's eyes. Yeah, they're going about life a little bit different, but they're staying grounded. They're being realistic. They're simply taking action on the opportunities around them because they feel like that's going to be a great opportunity for them. They don't want to waste this opportunity. They don't want to waste their life within reality, and therefore I think the ISTJ is going to respect them greatly. They're going to be able to validate all of those feelings, all of those passion projects that the ESFP has. They see all of the accomplishments that the ESFP has under their belt. They see how they're moving up in society, and they're going to be like, wow, you're taking action on every little thing. You're accomplishing your goals, ESFP. I respect that. I'm also working on my goals step by step, but I'm not taking action on anything and everything. They're kind of just staying within their own lane, but they're going to respect that ESFP on not leaving any opportunity on the table, regardless if it's what they're supposed to be doing or not. If it's a realistic opportunity for them and they see it right in front of them, they're not going to waste any time taking action on it, because simply put, they feel like, why would I waste this opportunity? So an ISTJ is going to have a lot of respect for them. They might be a little bit overwhelmed with how much status and how much attention the ESFP is getting from time to time. I'm not saying these individuals can't handle it. They definitely can. So if you like each other and you want to move up to you're in my life forever, I've definitely seen these dynamics play out and they're very happy with each other. But I do think more often than not, you're just going to be best friends. You're going to be amazing colleagues. You're going to be great within your community together. You guys can definitely network, brainstorm. You guys are both very proactive. If you come up with an idea together, an ISTJ is going to take it step by step. An ESFP is just going to look around them, see what things they can actually do in reality to actually accomplish this goal. So they're taking on life a little bit differently, but they're trying to end up at the finish line around the same time. So these individuals will have a lot in common. They're going to be able to validate each other's feelings. An ESFP might be able to get the ISTJ to kind of share how they feel from time to time. They're going to notice you're like, okay, you're taking action on all of these things. Is it because it just like makes you feel good? Why are you actually doing all of these things in reality? Explain to me how you're feeling about accomplishing your goals, ISTJ. And they're going to be able to kind of vibe out in reality and kind of just take a breather from time to time with that ESFP. Move within reality at a little bit of a different pace and just kind of enjoy, just vibing out instead of actually working towards their goals every single minute of every single day. So you guys will be able to bring out different sides within your personalities when you're hanging out in this world. You're going to be enjoying your time together. I definitely think you guys are going to show up to social events together. You guys are going to be able to network with ease, communicate clearly. So I don't see a lot of issues with this type, so there's definitely potential for more. But regardless, you're going to be best friends for a lifetime. When you do click in reality, I think you're going to immediately stay connected. You're going to share each other's contact information. You're going to get each other's socials, and you're going to keep up and motivate each other more often than not. Now, ISFPs are going in You're in My Life forever. These individuals are taking life at your preferred pace, ISTJ. These individuals have big feelings, and those feelings change depending on whatever environment they're in at this time. How are people communicating with them? How are people engaging with them? How are they dealing with all of these opportunities around them at that time? They're just going to be vibing out every little situation that they see. be, and they're going to be kind of focused on their future. They don't necessarily want to rock the boat within their reality, and therefore I think they're going to really enjoy the support system, the structure, the same routine that the ISTJ has within their life. ISTJs understand what they're supposed to be doing every day. They understand what lane that they're supposed to stay in, and they're not going to do anything crazy to make them actually feel like they're going against the grain, that they're being bad within reality, that they're going to get a negative reputation within their community. They definitely understand what you're supposed to be doing, what you're supposed to be working towards in order to stay in the good graces of your community, to stay within your lane, to accomplish your goals on whatever you think you're supposed to be doing. So when they cross paths with an ISFP, they're going to be able to connect, they're going to be able to communicate. They're both very grounded individuals. They're both very realistic with their ideas. They understand what you're supposed to be doing in reality, how you're supposed to be connected with your community, how you're supposed to show up to community events and be seen from time to time. Even though you might not always want to feel like you want to be chatty within your community, even though the ISTJ has no real interest in small talk, keeping up with the gossip, dealing with questions from your community members, they understand, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And same with the ISFP. Even though they might not feel like they want to go to that social function, they understand long term, okay, you need to show up in reality, you want to be seen. Maybe they might actually feel like, okay, if I actually be seen, if I get the compliments, if people notice me, if people validate me, maybe it's going to actually change on how I feel today. I've been feeling overwhelmed. I've been feeling overlooked. I've been feeling slighted for quite a while at this point. They're currently struggling because they can't see any new ways on how to deal with their life. They just assume it's always going to be like this. They're always going to feel that way. And when they show up in reality and they see an ISTJ is going to, chat with them, talk to them, validate what the ISFP is doing in reality. They're going to be talking about each other's goals. An ESFP might have noticed new opportunities around them. They might not necessarily be taking action on them right now, but they might be communicating on how they might feel like, okay, this might be a good opportunity for me. I think the ISTJ is just going to naturally motivate that ISFP, give them ideas on starting points, being like, ooh, that's a really cool thing that you're super passionate about, ISFP. That's a real cool opportunity that you saw available to you within reality. For the long term, this could really be a positive impact on your life. So maybe get started on XYZ, whenever you have some time. You don't have to overwhelm yourself, but here's some, starting out points. Here's some structure just to get you started. Definitely call me up if you need some help from time to time. I'll support you. I'll be able to validate all of your feelings along your path. So these individuals, I think, are going to immediately click. I think they're going to naturally be like, I feel seen with you. I don't feel overwhelmed with you. You're realistic within the conversation. ISTJs have big feelings. They're just simply not sharing them with others. But that ISFP is going to get them to open up, really communicate how they're feeling in reality right now. And then I think the ISTJ is really going to appreciate that someone actually noticed them, cared enough to, extract those feelings, validate them, talk about the passion projects that the ISTJ has been shelving because they don't think, okay, I don't have the time for it. It's objectively not a good use of my time every day. But that ISFP is going to be like, no, you need to work on your passion projects. You need to schedule time within your day, create some structure for yourself in order for you to actually play around within reality, play around with how you feel about this, work on your hobbies from time to time. Then, the next day you can get right back to work. You can do whatever you think you're supposed to be doing right then and, start tackling your goals once again. But you need to create space for your feelings. You need to be able to express how you're feeling and get these feelings out in this world. So overall, I think you're just going to naturally click and connect with each other. You're going to immediately realize, okay, this pacing of this individual, this structure of the ISTJ is really going to help each other. I think you're going to bring out each other's best sides within this world, and I think you're going to be in each other's lives forever. So you're not getting rid of each other anytime soon. ENTJs are going in, let's be friends. ENTJs are super motivated people. They're no nonsense people. They have a to-do list. They understand what they're supposed to be doing. They have a long-term goal for themselves. They have a vision and reality that they want to create for themselves sooner rather than later. So they're getting right to work. And I think when that ISTJ meets that ENTJ, they're going to be like, wow, this is a very efficient person. This is a very proactive person. I don't really understand where direction they're taking their life because they're definitely not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And ENTJ is not following the rule book of reality. They're coming up with their own vision that they want to create for themselves, and therefore they're going to design their own path and forge their own way within this world. They're going to take their life in a whole new direction. So an ISTJ might immediately be like, okay, I'm a little confused with where you're, taking your life, but I respect the fact that you're using every hour within your 24 hours days. You're getting right to the point within conversation. When I ask you a question, you're supplying all of the data. You have references. You can back up your point within the conversation. You're not just sharing what you think and feel about something. You can always bring the objective facts to kind of explain the situation in detail. And an ISTJ is going to respect that. They're going to be able to analyze all of that information and respect all of the data and be like, yeah, I would have probably come to that conclusion as well if I had all of this information. You simply just came to the conclusion first. So I respect and appreciate the fact that you're sharing this information with others. It might help an ISTJ work towards their goals a little bit faster, be a little bit more efficient in reality. They're going to be able to respect the fact that they're facts over feelings type of people, that they're not necessarily pushing their feelings and their passions on other people. They're just keeping those feelings to themselves. Neither one of them are wasting time to, small talk and casually, communicate with each other, check in on each other's feelings, day-to-day actions on like, oh, do you need any help? No, they understand you both have a to-do list. You both understand what you're objectively supposed to be doing that day. And you're not taking any time to, chat around and gossip within your community. You're getting right to work. And therefore, I think they're going to immediately be friends. If you're colleagues, if you're community members, you're going to respect each other's work ethic greatly. An ISTJ might not always understand and really want to live the life that the ENTJ is living. They might be creating some problems from time to time. And from an ISTJ's perspective, they don't want that reputation. They don't want people to think that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They want people to be able to understand and trust them, that they're staying within their own lane, not causing issues for the people around them. And as the ENTJ is taking their life in a new direction, yeah, it could ruffle some feathers from time to time. But I think when a lot of people see what work the ENTJ is getting done, they're going to respect it. They're going to be like, wow, you're, really efficient. You're accomplishing a lot. I respect your work ethic. And therefore, I think you're going to give each other space, but definitely want each other within your friend group. I definitely think you guys will be able to lean on each other within information, data sharing, shared resources. So whatever you're working towards in reality, I definitely think you're going to connect, share each other's contact information, and stay friends and be friendly when you both show up to social functions. Even though the ENTJ is taking their life in a new direction, overall, they're very grounded, especially within conversations. They're going to be talking about what's realistic, what are the opportunities to them and everyone else around them. And therefore, the ISTJ is going to respect that. They're going to be able to follow their train of thoughts, really understand what the ENTJ is saying. So yeah, they're just going to be friends. An INTJ is going in, let's be friends. Yeah, you guys are going to get along. An ISTJ understands what they're supposed to be doing. An INTJ is coming up with their own conclusions. They're creating their own vision within reality, and they're forging their own way in order to accomplish their goals. Both of these individuals are getting right to work. When you show up at work, you show up within class, you're getting out all of the information that is relevant to that topic that you're dealing with right now. You're staying objective within conversation, and you're accomplishing your goals in order to cross off your tasks off of your to-do list every single day. You both are keeping your feelings close to your chest. You're not pushing your passions on other people around you just because you might be feeling a certain type of way within reality. No one else in this world is really going to know that. You're going to stay objective within the conversation. You're going to be facts over feelings type of people. When you connect and communicate with others, even though the INTJ has a new vision, a new path that they're taking in this world, overall, they're staying very realistic within the conversations. They understand, okay, what objectively needs to be done that day. They understand what's realistically available to them in order to accomplish their goals right now, not necessarily in the future. Even though they understand what goals they have to accomplish in their future, they understand what they need to get done within this 24-hour period. So if an ISTJ asks them a question and they ask, what are you working on? What are you doing right now? They're going to be able to communicate what tasks that they're about to cross off their list. An ISTJ is going to be able to follow the train of thought within conversation, understand what the INTJ is communicating to them. They're both going to be able to appreciate the resources that they might share within each other. So if you're coworkers, you're definitely going to lean on each other when you come into issues from time to time. You're both going to ask each other, okay, what steps were you taking in order to accomplish this? Did you come into this bottleneck? Were you having this issue? Because both of them are taking their life step by step and accomplishing their goals sooner rather than later within this world. They definitely will be able to help each other move up within this world, share resources, share information. And I think you're going to not necessarily waste each other's time within conversation. Neither one of you guys want to pencil in time within your schedule for gossip, for small talk about what you did last weekend. Both of you guys do not care to engage in that kind of communication. And therefore, I think you guys might respect that within each other more than you actually give each other credit for. You might actually feel like, okay, this is a really cool person. They're no nonsense. They're, getting to work every day. They're not bothering me with small talk questions. You might not necessarily share how you feel, and how you respect each other greatly in that way with each other. And therefore, you might not always move up to, you're in my life together, or I love you, let's live. But there's always that possibility, so I'm not ruling it out. I've definitely seen an ISTJ and an INTJ together. Just how you're perceiving this world, how you're tackling your goals are a little bit different. ISTJs are way more structured. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're staying within their lane. They're kind of taking their life in a direction that many people have already taken this path. And an INTJ is simply put, forging their own way, creating a new reality for themselves. And an ISTJ might not always want to take their life in that direction. They're going to respect each other, be like, okay, I'm going to motivate you if you ever need help. I'll share resources if you ever need them. But I'm taking my life in this direction. You take your life in that direction. And, I'll see you from time to time. I'll support you at work if you ever need any help. But let's just stay friends. And I think that's going to happen more often than not, but there's always that potential. So keep your options open. All right, ENFJs are going in We Might Clash. Okay, ENFJs are chatty Cathys, okay? They're going around their communities, asking all of the questions, requesting all of the feedback, trying to understand how are you feeling? Is there anything I can help you with? How is it going? What'd you do last weekend? Give me the gossip, give me the information. And an ISTJ is blind to understanding why you're wasting so much time doing those things, asking me those questions. They might be like, why are you asking me about my feelings? Like, I keep my feelings close to my chest. I'm assuming everyone else is doing the same. Why would I share my feelings with you? I don't need to be validated by you, ENFJ. Please stop pestering me with these small talk questions. I understand what I'm supposed to be doing every day. I have a full to-do list that I need to accomplish by the end of the workday. Nowhere within my schedule is gossiping with you, ENFJ. So simply put, leave me alone. So they're not always going to connect, realistically within reality. More often than not, they might actually clash. And ENFJ, even though they are, pretty grounded, they're creating a vision, a realistic vision for themselves within reality. And they're going to take their life in a new direction and connect with whoever they need to connect to in order to create that vision a reality sooner rather than later. Objectively, they're not getting a lot of, tasks done every day. They're taking way more time talking to people, connecting with people, helping people, lending a helping hand whenever they need to, validating people's feelings, doing all of those things rather than crossing anything that was on their to-do list every day. So to an ISTJ's perspective on how they're viewing an ENFJ, they're going to be like, wow, they waste so much time gossiping. They waste so much time going around the office just communicating with everyone around them rather than sitting down at their desk and actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. To an ISTJ, they're not really objectively accomplishing anything in reality because they simply are blind to seeing the point on how, if you just connect with the right people, you could hop, skip up the corporate ladder. You can skip a lot of steps within reality. You can just create your vision for yourself, a reality sooner rather than later. To an ENFJ, there's opportunities all around you. To an ENFJ, it really just depends on who you connect to. A new door might open to you and you might be able to gain a new opportunity. But an ISTJ is blind to FE. They don't see the point on taking time every day to, check in with your community, ask what's new. Have you met anyone new? How's your networking going? How's your, side project going? What are you accomplishing in this world? Simply put, they don't necessarily see the advantages that the ENFJ is taking on and capitalizing on every single day. So they're going to just clash because to an ISTJ, they're going to be like, they moved up the corporate ladder, but they didn't have the right accomplishments under their belt. They didn't do it step by step on how you were supposed to. From my understanding, from my perspective, there was a list of things you were supposed to do before you even had the opportunity to be a candidate for that promotion. Well, an ENFJ just, connected with the right person and got promoted right away. I definitely think that's going to bother the ISTJ. They're going to be like, they're not even staying in their lane. They're not even accomplishing the goals that they're supposed to be doing. I don't feel like that's fair. They're going to be really upset that the ENFJ is kind of hacking the system within their communities. And therefore, they're going to clash because they're not necessarily going to respect, the work ethic of the ENFJ. They're going to think that they're wasting too much time chatting because they're just simply blind to all of those opportunities available to them. So more often than not, I think they're going to give each other a lot of space. I definitely think the ENFJ is going to try to connect with the ISTJ, but sooner rather than later, they're going to realize, okay, they're just staying within their lane. They're not being open to all of these new opportunities. They're not being open to, sharing how they're feeling. They're not being open to, utilizing me to help from time to time. They're kind of shutting me down within conversation. ENFJs are not necessarily communicating on the facts of a situation. They're just explaining on how they feel and think about a situation at that time. And therefore, the ISTJ is just not going to see eye to eye with them. They're going to clash with them. If they're coworkers, yeah, you guys might want to give each other a lot of space, because an ISTJ is just not going to really understand how you're moving within reality, ENFJ. So despite all of your efforts on connecting ENFJ, I don't think these people, well, there's a lot of variety, so there's an opportunity, but I think the majority of this type is going to want some space from an ENFJ. But there's always that possibility, so you never know. All right, INFJs are going to be, let's be friends. Yes, there's definitely an opportunity for more. I've definitely seen these individuals in a relationship, but I think first things first, you need to create a solid foundation and you're going to become friends. Yes, you can move up, if there's a romantic spark, but I think more often than not, you're just going to be kind of friend zoning each other. ISTJs are staying within their lane. They understand what tasks they need to do every day, and INFJs are creating a new vision for themselves in this world, and therefore they're going to forge their own path within reality. They're going to connect with their community. They're going to check in with their loved ones. They're going to ask them questions. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? And, maybe first things first, if you're coworkers, it depends on the situation on how you guys connect, okay? This is kind of a situational dynamic. But if you're connecting at work, an ISTJ might not necessarily appreciate all of the small talk questions. They understand when you first are being introduced to someone, you're supposed to, be curious about them, ask some questions, answer some questions, engage in some small talk, conversation. But overall, they want to get to work. They understand what they're supposed to be doing. And they feel like, answering questions for too long is just a waste of their time. So if an INFJ is coming off, too curious, if they're pestering an ISTJ with too many questions, they might be like, okay, can you just ask your questions to someone else? I don't necessarily want to replay my reality to you. I don't need your validation on how I'm feeling today, INFJ. I understand you're just trying to be kind, but I have simply too much to do rather than, do a therapy session right now, INFJ. So you stay over there, I'm going to stay over here, and we can connect, from time to time, especially at social functions. I understand you're just being nice, so I'm not going to be rude to you, INFJ. But simply put, let me get back to work. Let me focus on what actually makes me feel good in reality. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, so simply put, just kind of stay out of my way. And an INFJ is going to respect that, right? They're going to be like, okay, we all have different paths that we're taking in reality. I respect if that's how you feel, ISTJ. I think it's really cool that you're working towards your goals every day and you're not really getting caught up in the gossip. And even though you're not really interested in talking with your community all of the time, I respect how you're living in this world. And therefore, long term, they can analyze that ISTJ and be like, okay, this is just how they are. This is just how they're functioning. And therefore, I'm only going to ask them some questions when they're taking a break themselves, when they're kind of stepping away from their desk, when they have some free time, maybe when you guys link up at a social function. The ISTJ is not on the clock at that time. And then they're going to ask them the questions. They're going to ask them about their, goals. What are you accomplishing? Do you possibly want to be sharing how you're feeling at this time, ISTJ? They're going to give them that opportunity to kind of express those feelings while they're not at work, while they're not on the clock. And therefore, I think you guys definitely might connect. So there's definitely a possibility for something more, but an INFJ is taking their life in a new direction. And ISTJ might not always want to go that same way. They understand which lane they're supposed to be staying in. So it really just depends on what the INFJ is accomplishing in this world. What vision do they have for their own reality? What community members are they connecting with in order to accomplish their long-term vision, their long-term goal, to continue on their path within this world? And therefore, the ISTJ might like it, might not like it. It really just depends. There's a lot of variety with the ISTJs. INFJs are 3%, so you're not always going to be together, but I definitely think you guys are going to be good friends. You guys are going to respect each other. Even though you guys might not fall in love with each other or be like besties and always in communication, I definitely think when you guys come together within reality, there's going to be a lot of respect. There's going to be a lot of cordial conversation, and therefore you guys are essentially going to get along. So yeah, there's potential for more, but regardless, I don't think you're on each other's bad side. I don't think there's going to be a lot of confusion within conversation. You're going to be able to connect with each other pretty easily from time to time, and therefore I think you're going to be friends for a lifetime. All right, ESFJs are going in, I love you, let's live. Okay, ESFJs are chatty Cathys. They're the talk of the town. They always have the gossip. They're always asking people questions. They're going up to all of their community members and checking in with them. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? And an ISTJ is FE blind. They don't always understand why they need to gossip with their community, why they need to answer the questions, why they need to share how they're feeling at this moment in time. They're keeping their feelings close to their chest. They don't necessarily need validation from others. They understand what they're supposed to be doing. They have a to-do list on what they need to accomplish that day. And if they're working towards their goals and staying within their lane, essentially they're probably feeling great within reality. Well, to an ESFJ, they're just being nice because that's what you're supposed to be doing in reality. You're supposed to be checking in with your community. And these individuals are rather grounded. They're staying within their lane. They're not causing problems within their community. They're working towards their goals every day. And they're utilizing their connections in order to move up within society, climb the corporate ladder, whatever they're trying to do in this world. They're doing it through the connections that they make every step of the way. And an ISTJ might be able to analyze that ESFJ and be like, look, I don't necessarily appreciate your main method of communication. I don't necessarily want to take a lot of time to, talk about the small talk about how I'm feeling, but I understand you're just being nice. From your perspective, you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not causing problems. You're not causing issues. You have an overall good reputation in reality. So I think they're going to respect that. They're going to be like, yeah, okay, we're living life a little bit differently, but you don't have a bad reputation. You can stand next to me at social functions. I don't think it's going to hinder my own reputation. I don't think it's going to hinder my own goals. I don't think you're going to get in the way on what I'm supposed to be doing right now. You're not going to really hinder me on accomplishing my tasks because I'm going to communicate with you. Okay, I don't mind the questions, but only ask me when I'm on my break. Only ask me at social functions. Please don't pester me at work. I'm trying to be as proactive and efficient as possible when I'm on the clock. So simply put, keep your questions to yourself until we're in the correct situation. When you are friends and you do connect at the social functions, you do connect after work, at a happy hour, whatever it is, you guys are going to be able to replay your reality. You both like replaying, what happened in your past, what you just experienced. You definitely want to replay that from time to time and kind of analyze, okay, what was said, what was accomplished. And therefore, I think, after hours, then you're going to be able to gossip. Then you're going to be able to share, what you're accomplishing that day. And ESFJ is going to be able to validate whatever that ISTJ is accomplishing, however that ISTJ is feeling. They're going to be like, oh, thank you for opening up. Thank you for sharing your day. Thank you for explaining to me what you've been working on, what you've been accomplishing within this world. So you guys are both very grounded individuals. You both show up to social functions. Even though the ISTJ isn't really motivated to, be up to date on the gossip, they like to understand what's going on in their world. They like to understand the current social status of everyone around them. So if the ESFJ wants to share all of those juicy details, they're definitely, their ears are going to kind of perk up from time to time. When they're not at work, they're not on the clock, then they're going to definitely be open to okay, yeah, replay to me what was said. What did that person say? What did that person do? Oh, are these two people now together? What's going on in reality? Share all of the interpersonal stories that you have for me. And an ESFJ, yeah, they have a lot of stories to share. So an ISTJ just kind of might sit back and enjoy their evening just listening to the ESFJ talk. They're going to have a good time with each other. But from an ISTJ's perspective, I don't think they might not always have a romantic spark with an ESFJ. They might think the ESFJ is wasting too much time on the gossip, wasting too much time kind of getting into everyone's business. From an ISTJ's perspective, they might not necessarily be as proactive as how the ISTJ would prefer them to be, at least within reality on how they think you're supposed to be, on how they think you're supposed to engage with your community, with your to-do list every single day. They just kind of have a different, way of, taking action in this world. But overall, they're going to kind of see eye to eye. They're both very grounded and realistic individuals in this world. And therefore, I think you're going to love each other, respect each other, and, be good friends with each other when you connect in reality. But I don't think the ISTJ is always going to have a romantic spark with an FE Dom. And therefore, they're just kind of best friends, for life, friend zone these people, be ride or dies, but not necessarily be in each other's lives forever, you know what I mean? Which I think is fine. So best friends for a lifetime, I think that's fine in both of your eyes. So ISFJs are going in You're My Life Forever. Okay, they're both 10% of the population. There's a lot of variety between these two types, okay? So they might not always be a love connection. You guys just might be best friends for a lifetime, really good community members. You're going to lean on each other because I think you both can trust each other for the long term. You're both going to be able to assess that, okay, you're staying within your own lanes. You understand what you're supposed to be doing in reality. You're staying in the good graces within your community. You're not not causing problems, you're not breaking the law, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing every day, and therefore they're going to find a lot of comfort within each other. Yes, how they're accomplishing their goals is very different. ISTJs understand what objectively needs to be done first, what are the order of events that need to be accomplished and crossed off their to-do list that day. They're going to be working towards their goals and being productive every single day, and that's going to make them feel good and feeling accomplished within this world. To an ISFJ, they're connecting with their community, they're asking them questions, checking in with them. Hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you working on? Do you need any help? Do you want to talk about your past? Do you want to talk about what's been bothering you? I'm all ears. I'll listen to you for however long you need. And an ISTJ is FE blind, so they might not always be really interested immediately in all of the questions that ISFJ asks. However, when they explain to that ISFJ, I really appreciate the kindness that's coming my way within your questions. However, I have a to-do list, so can you kind of just, schedule the questionnaire for when I'm not on the clock, for when, check in with me at the social functions, then we can connect and progress our relationships. Then we can schedule a proper date, and then we can get into how we're feeling, how we're doing, what am I accomplishing in this world. I'll give you all the time you want within the conversation, ask all of the questions, ask you questions in return, check in with you, validate your feelings, ISFJ, ask about what you think about a situation, what is your understanding on a topic. But let's schedule a proper date in order to communicate all of those things. Let's actually create some structure within our lives, because when I'm on the clock, when I'm working, that's not when I want to be answering all of your questions. And I think the ISFJ is going to respect that. They're going to be like, okay, you're not completely disregarding me, you're not necessarily brushing me off immediately, and I appreciate the structure, I appreciate understanding when am I supposed to be asking you questions, what time works best for you to engage and open up on your feelings. And therefore, when they schedule a proper date, a proper hangout, meet up with each other at a social function, they're going to have a great time kind of replaying their lives to each other. Both of these individuals have an amazing memory. They remember conversations from their past word for word, the life experience that they had last weekend, last year, however long it's been. They can share those stories with each other, go into all of the details and essentially kind of relive that experience with each other. So both of them will give each other time, both of them will give each other space, both of them will find a lot of comfort in each other's schedules, how they're kind of staying the same. Both of them are not going to overwhelm each other with all of the new craziness within this world. If an ISTJ tells an ISFJ, this is what I'm accomplishing this day, these are the tasks I'm crossing off my list, an ISFJ is going to find a lot of comfort understanding, okay, I really do trust them, I really do feel like that's the lane that they're staying in. I never really have to really analyze and question, okay, are they actually doing what they're telling me what they're doing? These are very honest, law-abiding citizens within this world. And therefore, I think if they connect and they do have a romantic spark, yeah, I think you're going to be in each other's lives forever. There's a lot of variety, so you're not always going to be with each other, but I definitely think you're going to find a lot of comfort being with each other. So yeah, you're going to want each other in your life forever. ESTJs are going in, you're in my life forever. Okay, these busy little bees within this world are going to impress you, ISTJ. They have a to-do list, they understand what they're supposed to accomplish in this world, and they're not wasting any time within reality. They're working towards their goals, they're being productive, they're staying on topic, they're not wasting time gossiping, they're not wasting time checking in with others on how they feel. Both of these individuals are keeping their feelings close to their chest, so when they open their mouth and they're communicating on a topic, they're getting right to the point. They're sharing the data. They're proving their point within the conversation with the objective information. And I think both of these individuals will immediately connect and kind of impress each other right away. They're going to be like, wow, they're very efficient. They're very proactive. They're no nonsense people. I can understand every single thing that they say within reality. They're very grounded. They're very structured. They're taking their life step by step. They're staying within their own lane. They're not causing issues within their community. They're both law-abiding citizens. Well, to a certain degree, an ESTJ might be a little bit more problematic than the ISTJ because they have some, crazy ideas from time to time and kind of just take action on them because they're like, yeah, why not? Let's just test it out. But more often than not, they are staying within their own lane. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're taking life step by step. So I think they're going to bring each other a lot of comfort. There's going to be really good understanding within communication. They're going to be able to help each other move up within reality, leverage the situation, share the resources, share the data, and really help each other accomplish accomplish each other's goals. I think these people are no-nonsense people. They're not wasting any time at work or at the social function dealing with the gossip. Yeah, they can be open to hearing it from time to time, but they're going to be kind of focused on like, what opportunity could this possibly bring me? Can I leverage this information within like promotion time at work? What am I actually supposed to be doing with all of this information that people are gossiping about? They might be able to leverage it from time to time, but more often than not, they're just staying in their own lane, working towards their goals, not really taking time to engage in the small talk questions and the gossip, trying to validate each other's feelings. They're productive people just working on their to-do lists and accomplishing their goals every single day. So I think when they see each other in reality and connect, you're going to be fast friends. And if there's a romantic spark, you're going to realize, okay, if I have this person around me, I'm going to be 10 times more motivated because they're a non-stop engine. They just keep going. They wake up every single day motivated to accomplish their goals. And therefore, if we're going to be with each other for a lifetime, I think we're going to be unstoppable together. So I think they're going to see a lot of potential within each other. I think they're going to see a lot of positive impacts that they bring within their own life. There's going to be a lot of comfort with each other, figuring out each other's schedules, staying within each other's lanes, not really causing problems within the community, not really affecting each other's reputations, and getting right to the point within the conversation. They're no nonsense people. They're not trying to waste their time or anyone else's time. And I think they're going to respect that within each other greatly. So yeah, I think you're going to be in each other's lives forever. ISTJs are going in You're in My Life Forever. Why do I argue this? Well, because there's a lot of variety between you guys. Like, even though you're taking action every single day towards your goals, even though you're keeping your feelings to yourself, even though you're not wasting time gossiping within your community, you understand what you're supposed to be doing. You're staying within your own lane and you're working towards your goals every single day. You're scheduling your life and creating a routine for your life in order to be the most productive person that you can be while doing whatever you're supposed to be doing within reality. You're very grounded individuals. You're both very realistic with your goals. You're very structured with how you're accomplishing your goals. You prefer to keep to a schedule. You have your separate to-do lists and you're getting right to work as soon as you wake up every single day because that's what makes you feel great within reality. But since each of you guys have a different backstory, since each of you guys were raised a different way and have a different understanding on how you're supposed to be, and because everyone has a different culture background, yes, I actually think there might be enough variety in order for you guys to actually respect each other, find comfort in each other's schedule, be reassured that you're not a problem starter, that you're staying within your own lane, you're a law-abiding citizen, just working towards your goals every single day, because that's what you feel like you're supposed to be doing. Each of you guys have a different idea of on like what you're supposed to be doing in reality, so therefore you're going to be able to replay your past, replay the stories, replay what was said to you word for word, share your experiences with each other. They're not going to be the same. They can overlap from time to time, so you're not always going to find a romantic spark with each other. You might just be best friends for a lifetime, but you're definitely going to be high up within this tier. You guys like what you like your schedules, you like your routines, and when you guys start replaying each other's past, you replay what was said to you, there's going to be clear understanding, there's going to be clear respect for your work ethic. Eventually you might, share how you're feeling and you're going to be able to validate each other's feelings. You're going to respect each other, that you're not pushing your passions on other people. You're kind of just keeping how you're feeling and what you're passionate about close to your chest. And therefore you're going to connect immediately. There's got to be a lot of respect. There's got to be a lot of love. And if there's a romantic spark, I definitely think you're going to be in each other's lives forever. So despite the fact that you guys actually might think you're the same, I think there's actually a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of differences within this type. So you never know what you're going to get with another ISTJ. So ISTJ, that is your function stack with all 16 types. As a reminder, this is just my perspective. I do not know your SI. I do not know what you were exposed to. I don't know what brings you comfort within this world. So you might like some types that are further down. You might not like some types that are further up. This is all just perspective, so keep that in mind. But if you're an ISTJ or you know an ISTJ and you want to share your experience, your perspective in the comments below, I'm sure all of us would appreciate that feedback. So that's all I got to say for today. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye.